Stop investing in property until you've watched this video and learnt the potential mistakes that you could make that would drain your savings quicker than you can say property portfolio. After investing in property for almost 6 years and being part of hundreds of property deals for my clients, but also many for myself, I have noticed some very costly mistakes that people make in property. But with the right information, these mistakes could easily be learnt and be avoided. So in this video, I am going to cover these 6 expensive mistakes that you need to avoid in property. Mistake number 1 is tying up your cash too quickly, because one of the biggest mistakes I see many new investors make is tying up all of their capital. Let's say that you've invested £50,000 into a property that profits £400 a month. That means you're making 9.6 return on investment or ROI on your money. If you've got a massive budget of £500,000, that might not be a problem because you can go and buy 10 houses like that. And each one is gonna add up and produce a steady income. But what if you only have £50,000 to start with? Now, the problem is that once you've bought that property and that £50,000 is invested, you can't buy another property until you save up more money. And depending on your income, that could take literally years. For many people watching this, saving £1,000 a month is a stretch, meaning it could take you more than 2 years before you're in a position to buy another property. So this is where buy, refurbish, refinance comes in, okay? This is a strategy that you can use in property. And if you're unfamiliar with it, here's how it works. You buy a property below market value, you then refurbish it to add the value, and then you refinance it to try and pull out as much capital as possible at the end, and then you rent it out. Now, the goal is to keep rotating your capital so that you can keep buying more and more properties without constantly having to save up for a new deposit each time. And I've done videos on this strategy in the past, and trust me, this strategy is an absolute game changer in property. So that's what you need to think about using rather than just tying up all of your capital on that first property. Mistake number 2 is not moving quickly enough, or we could say speed. They say that money loves speed, and that is definitely true in business, and it's definitely true in property too. But too many investors fail to get started quickly enough. I've been to plenty of events over the years where people have been watching YouTube videos for years and years and years, which is great, but they still haven't taken any action. Why is that? Because they're too nervous to get started. They feel like they need everything to align perfectly before they go and jump into their first property deal. But let me tell you, if you're waiting for the perfect deal to come along, well, you'll probably be waiting forever. Think of it like training for a marathon. You can read all of the books on running and watch all of the videos on it too, but you'll never get any better at running until you actually start putting the miles in. And weirdly, the same thing applies to property. By not getting started, you're missing out on valuable lessons, valuable learning experiences, key relationships, and of course, potential profit from property, from the growth and from the rent. I started my property journey back in 2019. I bought a property in Liverpool for just £58,000. Was it scary? Absolutely. But I learned so much from it. And within 2 years, I had made £6,000 in profit from the rent, and the property had gone up in value from £58,000 to £90,000. And today it's worth around £100,000. And the key to that was just getting started and learning. And every year that you wait is potentially a year that you're missing out on the compounding of the growth of that property. So you need to get started. Mistake number 3, overpaying for properties. Now let's quickly talk about that. Let's talk about paying too much for a property. Here's a question for you. If a property is listed with an estate agent online for £100,000 and you manage to get £15,000 off the price, bringing the price down to £85,000, is that a good deal? The answer might surprise you. It's actually slightly a trick question because you can't know if that's a good deal just by looking at the price. So if you were thinking to yourself then, yes, that's a good deal, he's managed to get £15,000 off, wrong, you didn't have all the information. What if that property was actually worth £85,000 in the first place, but the estate agent listed it at £100,000 to test the market, okay? In this case, you think you've got a great discount, a £15,000 discount, but you're actually paying the true market value for the property. That's not a discount. And this is something I see all the time. Investors get really excited about the discount they've negotiated But when I look at comparables and when I factor in the refurbishment costs, it's super clear to me that they've overpaid. The trick here is to know the value of the property, account for how much you're going to need to spend on renovations, and then factor in all associated fees. From there, you'll know the maximum price that you should pay for the property. You see, sometimes I've even made offers of, let's say, like £80,000 on a property that's listed for 85, because the asking price was already reasonable, and I could tell that from the comparables. I could tell that from the amount that I need to spend on it and what it could be worth. But equally, there's other times where I've offered £65,000 on a property that is listed for £100,000, and normally that doesn't go down too well, but that is property, okay? You can't assume that it's listed at the right price, and you have to figure out what it's worth so that you can make the appropriate offer. Mistake number 4 is simply trying to time the market. This is a tricky one because many investors think they can predict when the market is going to go up or when it's going to go down. But in reality, well, nobody knows, nobody has a crystal ball. So trying to time the market perfectly can lead to missed opportunities and unnecessary delays. The key here is actually to focus for the long term, especially if you're planning to build a portfolio and hold on to these properties for years and years and years. If you find a good deal, don't let the fear of the market fluctuations hold you back, because long-term value appreciation and rental income will often outweigh the short-term market shifts that you see. And in actual fact, in most instances, all you have to do is look at a graph which shows property values over the last 100 years, maybe even as little as 50 years, the last 20 years. There will be ups, there will be downs, but overall that graph is going one way only. Mistake number 5 is underestimating refurb costs. This one is huge. I've worked with a lot of new investors who get excited about the potential of property, only to then go and be hit by a massive refurbishment bill that they just weren't prepared for. Always, and I do mean always, overestimate your refurbishment costs and make sure that you've built in a buffer into your budget, okay? Because costs can spiral quickly, and not having enough capital set aside for this can turn a good deal into a, well, very stressful situation. And just to go into a little bit more detail on this mistake, a lot of new investors come to me thinking, well, I can do that refurb, no problem at all. It'll only cost me 10 grand, it'll only cost me 15 grand. And I'll look at it for them or with them and I'll go, right, this is a 2-bedroom terrace. You need to take off all the wallpaper, rip it out. You're gonna need a full rewire. You're gonna need full plumbing, plastering, decorating, flooring, kitchen, bathroom, you name it, they need it. And actually in my mind, I'm like, well, when I get my spreadsheet out and I add all of those things onto it, I'm at like 25 to 30,000. In many times, I'm actually even higher than that. How are you going to do this for 10 or 15? Even if you do the work all of yourself, which you shouldn't be doing that if you're a property investor, you will not be able to buy materials for 10 to 15,000 pounds. So there is sometimes a little bit of naivety around pricing, which I fully understand is part of getting into property and part of learning. So as a beginner, you need to look out for this mistake. You need to talk to trades, you need to talk to people that have done this before, other property investors that have done this before, understand, engage what the pricing is in your area so that you can avoid making this mistake. Mistake number 6 is missing a fault. Let's talk about what that means, missing faults in property. Sometimes, especially in the excitement of going on a viewing, looking around a deal, we could fail to spot something which is quite serious and it could cost a lot of money to fix later on. This could be anything from structural issues, Japanese knotweeds, or it could be problems internally like plumbing, electrics that you hadn't accounted for, maybe rotting timbers, maybe additional damp. Could go outside and it could be the fact the roof needs replacing. There are so many potential things that could go wrong here. So again, always, and when I say always, I mean always, when you're at the beginning of your journey, get a professional survey done before committing to a deal, okay? This could save you a massive hiccup in the long run. Okay, I will no longer always get a survey now, but I can do that after seeing hundreds of property deals, after doing hundreds, if not thousands of viewings at this point, and seeing problems come up, spending time with surveyors. I've spent time with builders, And I spent a lot of time and money on my education, learning about what these mistakes are, learning what these potential issues are, and more importantly, learning how to resolve them. Because most of these problems can be resolved. It's just a case of what does it cost and how do you do it? So one thing I would recommend to a beginner to avoid making those mistakes is get that survey done during the purchase phase. I'll be completely honest in saying that half the survey is over-exaggerated. You will have to take it with a pinch of salt because the surveyor is going there and they have to cover themselves. They have to make sure they tell you about everything wrong with this property. Sorry, surveyors, okay? I do respect you, but I know that these reports, sometimes I look at them and I'm like, this information is crazy or this pricing is crazy. But they're super important because if they find a problem that you might have missed, and again, that will save you thousands of pounds, either from pulling away and not doing the deal, or by being able to renegotiate the deal and then go ahead at a cheaper price, which factors in the cost of doing those work. So, well, those are the 6 mistakes that you could make. So I hope you made some notes. And if you're new to property investing, make sure to check out my other videos for more tips, for more detailed videos, and I also go into other strategies. If you're ready to get started in property, then, well, take a look at Property X. And if you're interested, well, we might end up working together. Other than that, thanks for watching as always, and well, I guess I'll see you in the next video.